before that, I was noticing, I find this interesting, I don't know if anybody else is following such things, but this is this opening weekend for Star Wars. Very big deal. In fact, it's already grossed 190 million, well, excuse me, it's on track to reach $190 million this opening weekend. Just incredible. And this is the 9th movie in the series. The first one came out in 1977, so it's 42 years ago. And because of that, right before the launch of the movie this weekend, there was an official name change. And you probably have noticed this. They changed the name. It's now called Star Wars 9, Luke Needs a Walker. So, it's the new thing. Actually I saw that on Golden Rule Break sign yesterday. I thought that was so funny. They got some hilarious stuff on there. So this peace, we're going to talk about peace this morning. And what a needed thing, especially during the Christmas season. I mean, the chaos and all the busyness, to find peace. And even as he said in the video, that sometimes you need that pause in life. The pauses in life are okay to just spend time with God and let Him help you with your peace. What a season that we need peace. We went shopping at Walmart yesterday. Oh, the steak.
Crazy.
Holy cow. The parking lot was crazy. And you know all this. But would you believe, so we're shopping. We'd only got a couple items. We had like two items in our cart. And we couldn't get down this one aisle. There's too many other people in carts. So we thought we'd leave our cart in this more in the center aisle. And we hid it between, there was a stack of boxes and stuff in there, and so we hid it kind of there, went down the aisle, we looking at toys, we came back out, somebody had taken our items out of our cart and put it on a rack there on another shelf, and stole our shopping cart. What kind of a furry-haired green Grinch would steal a shopping cart? Oh my goodness, I couldn't believe it. It was terrible. Oh, I know it. It's a madhouse out there. So far, we've talked about these things this Christmas season. And I want to give you a chance just to kind of debrief this in your own life. But first week, Grayson talked about hope believes yes. When it doesn't look like it's going to happen, it doesn't look like it's going to, when it seems like all the options are closed, hope believes yes. Lesson 2, or week 2, we talked about love, and that love overcomes fear. In the midst of fearful situations, we press into what God's calling us to do because we love. Number 3 was week 3. Last week it was joy doesn't give up. We hang in there, we keep going, we persevere. Today's message is going to be peace must rule your heart. Now, I mentioned that these were sermon starters from the Church of God. We've been using the resources this year. However, this week's I didn't connect with it as much, and so I was looking up some ideas and thoughts. Did a bunch of reading, did a bunch of research on my own. But I want to say that basically the outline this morning is going to come from a sermon from Rick Warren that he did a couple years ago called The Christmas Gift of Peace. Interesting note, this is a sermon that he shared the year after his own son died. He killed himself after a long battle with depression. And so as he talked about peace and finding peace in his own life, I found it profoundly valuable and powerful as well. So I want to share that with you. But first, before I do, I would like to give you just 2 minutes to talk to your neighbor. Who are you sitting next to? And I changed my question, so you can talk about 1 or 2 questions. My first thought was to talk about which quality, love, hope, joy, or peace, which one's the most important, or which one comes first, or which one do you think it would stand, that the others would stand on? That kind of an idea, which one's most important. But maybe I changed that last minute. I changed it to this morning. I asked it this way. Which quality could you use more of this Christmas season? Out of those four, which one could you personally use more of and why? You can go either direction with that. Gather your thoughts and then share that with your neighbor quickly. Because I'm only going to give you a couple of minutes. We still have a lot to do this morning. Okay, so go. But I was also thinking of that question, which one's most important? Which one kind of leads? Which one of the others may be built on? Does one stand out over the others? Of course, that could be a long discussion that I'm not saying I have an answer to even in my own mind this morning. However, if I ask the question, which one do I think is most important, before my studies this week, I certainly would not have picked peace. I would have said that's where I would go. I would have said that's the one from which the others flow. And yet, I really have kind of grown in that thought a lot this week as I consider it. And I want to suggest to you today that without peace, if you can't find peace, or if you don't know how to rest in peace, if you can't find peace in your life, I don't know that you'll ever really find any of the others either. To find hope, to find joy, to find love, I do believe, I'm beginning to see and recognize they flow out of finding peace. In fact, the quality that we find at the center of the Christmas story, the quality that is the centerpiece of the whole nativity, is peace. And that Jesus came to bring peace. We'll read a portion of the story in Luke chapter 2, if you want to pull out your Bibles and look at that this morning, where the angels announce the arrival of this baby Jesus, and then he brings peace. But while you're looking that up, also remember that hundreds of years before this, the prophet Isaiah said in chapter 9, he says, "For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulders. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace," which we know. Well, let's look at what he's called in the announcement from the angels in Luke chapter 2. We'll pick up the story in verse 8. And Jesus has been born, and there's some shepherds out in the field. This is what it says in verse 8. "And in the same region there were shepherds out in the field, keeping watch over their flocks by night. And the angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were filled with great fear. The angel said to them, 'Fear not, for behold, I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. And this will be a sign for you. You will find a baby wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in the manger.' And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of heavenly hosts, praising God and saying, 'Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace among those with whom he is pleased.' Then the angels went away from them into heaven. The shepherds said to one another, 'Let's go over to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has made known to us.' And they went with haste and found Mary and Joseph, and the baby lying in the manger. And when they saw it, they made known the saying that had been told them concerning this child. And all who heard it wondered at what the shepherds told them. Mary treasured up all these things, pondering them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all they had heard and seen, as it had been told to them." And so the prophet foretold that Jesus would bring peace. The angels announced that when he arrived, he would bring peace into the world. Jesus' life and ministry were about bringing peace. Jesus said in John 14:27, "I give you peace, the kind of peace that only I can give. It isn't like the peace this world can give, so don't be worried or afraid." It's about peace. He brings peace into the world. We'll unpack that and talk about what his peace looks like. But what is the kind of peace that we have in the world? The kind of peace in the world is phony and it's fragile. It's often not real and it never lasts. Just as soon as you enter into peace, you're going to very shortly leave peace behind. I remember our boys one time were having a big argument. They were probably around 8 and 11, 12, in that range. And they're having some big fight in the house, you know. That's a good fighting age, you know. Young, junior high, you can really have some good spats at that point. And they were having this big fight, and of course, you know, we broke them up. Mom had to set them down at the table. She gives them a big lecture, and then says, now you two are going to sit here, and you're going to look at each other until you can apologize, shake hands, okay, and start getting along. So they sat there for a few minutes. You know, steam was just rising off their heads. And they're looking at it, but they didn't want to sit there too long. So finally, they, I don't remember who went first, but somebody says, put out their hands, I'm sorry. They shook hands, they got up. The other one said, I'm sorry, and they left the table. I'd like to tell you, they never had another fight again as long as they've been brothers. That's right. But I'm in the pulpit. I can't lie that way. That's right. I have a theory that apology was more about being tired of sitting there than it was genuine in their hearts. Worldly peace is phony and it's fragile. But the Lord's peace is lasting. Jesus offers a different kind of peace. And the Bible talks about this peace. It confirms that the kind of peace that Jesus brings is lasting and it's real. I looked up the word peace in the ESV version of the Bible and was reading through it. There are 361 times that the word peace was used in all throughout the Bible in that particular version. And so this week I thought I would read every single one of those, and I did. I read every single verse on peace. And I wanted to look at what they had to say, and I wanted to understand them. And so this morning what we're going to do is we're going to read every one of those verses and try to learn from the Bible what peace means today. Well, okay, just kidding. We're not going to read all 300 verses. But the Bible talks about peace. Every time it talks about peace, you can put the teaching or whatever it's saying about peace, you can arrange it in one of three categories. Those three categories we will look at today. Each verse fits into, it talks about peace in one of three ways. Either spiritual peace, emotional peace, or relational peace. Now I'll give you two notable exceptions. There are a couple times in the New Testament, in the Gospels, where Jesus talks to the wind or to nature and says peace. It says, peace, be still. So Jesus commands even the storms of nature to be calm. So there's that exception. The second I found interesting, that there seems to be kind of a shift from the Old Testament to the New Testament. And in the Old Testament, every time the word peace is used, it very clearly fits into one of those categories. However, in the New Testament, every time the word peace is used, it quite often assumes all three simultaneously. And I found that was really interesting personally. So what is the difference between the three? Well, first of all, spiritual peace is peace with God. Spiritual peace is about living a life that is at peace with God. Emotional peace is about being at peace within yourself. And the relational peace is about peace with others. We'll look at all three, but it might be helpful to know that so often when we think about peace, typically we only think about it from that last one, relational peace. Did anybody say you needed more peace this Christmas season? And did it have anything to do with kind of how you get along in life because of the fighting at the shopping malls, the difficulties with families, everybody's stressed out around you, there's so much to do, all that kind of. So often when we think about peace, where we immediately go to is the horizontal. Peace is when everybody's getting along. Peacetime means there's no wars going on in the world. I mean, often when we think of peace, we think about only in the sense of an absence of chaos. But when Jesus said, my peace I give to you, he's talking about so much more than just the absence of conflict. And so let's look at the three. First of all, we have peace with God. To be at peace with God. Romans 5, 8 through 10 says, But God shows us his love for us, and that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Since therefore we have now been justified by his blood, much more shall we be saved by him from the wrath of God. For if while we were enemies, we were reconciled to God by the death of his Son, much more now that we are reconciled, we will be saved by his life. Jesus is the Prince of Peace because the most important peace that he brings to us is the peace that we can have with God. He died on the cross, and he took the punishment that we deserve. Our sin, our pride, our rebellion. We deserve what the scripture says that we just read. We deserve the wrath of God. We deserve judgment. We deserve penalty and punishment for the wrongs that we have done because we've offended a holy God. A righteous God, a good God, a just God. But Jesus took our punishment, and he died upon the cross, and he erased the debt of our wrong. And so we can have peace with God. Instead of his wrath, we get the peace of Jesus. He brings peace. Some people have never experienced that. Their life is full of guilt and worry and fear and stress and feeling overwhelmed. And what's interesting is they figure that because that's all they've ever known, that's normal. That's just the way life is. Everybody has that going on in their life. That's the way life is. People be fighting with their kids, fighting with their spouses, fighting with their work, fighting with their neighbors, fighting some system, fighting the man, fighting whoever. And that's just the only way they know life. That's all they've ever known.
Oh boy.
And they just assume that that's normal. Ever met someone who is truly at peace? And they can bring a calm into most any situation. There's a maturity there. They have the right words. But even spiritually, they just can bring a sense and a presence of peace. Without that, it doesn't matter how many vacations you take. You can't lay on a beach somewhere in the South Pacific long enough to find that kind of peace. Because when you come back home, the chaos is still there. You just can't rest enough. The fights and the rat race and the struggles and the stress, it's always ready to meet you again. Because peace from this world is fragile and it's phony. We just talked about that. But Jesus says that when you have peace with God, you can have that now. And you can have his presence. And you can have peace with him. And when you have that, we have frogs and crickets.
That's awesome.
That's one of those nice ones. But when you have peace with God, we can find rest. You see, peace flows down from the Lord and into our lives and then out around us. When we think about peace as the absence of chaos, we'll never find it because chaos is always around the next corner. If I have peace with God, then he helps me with the chaos. He helps me with the conflict. He helps me with the problems. The second one that you can have emotional peace, this is, the Bible calls it the peace of God. This is a peace that can reside within you. The Bible occasionally uses phrases like, go in peace, or peace be with you. The Jews use the word shalom, which means peace, but it's so much more than we might consider. It means may the peace of God rest upon you. And may you walk in peace everywhere you go. May your whole life and your whole heart and your whole body and everything about you be about peace as you go. We might even say that to someone, may you leave in peace. And may it just go with you. Philippians 4:7 says, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. So may the peace of God actually guard your heart. May it rule your heart. May you live in a state of peace at all times because his peace is within you. Solomon laments his sorrows in Lamentations 3:17. He says, my soul is bereft of peace. Peace has left me. I have no peace left. He says, I have forgotten what happiness is. Wow. What a sad existence. Maybe you know people like that. Maybe you've been a person like that at times. To be so distraught, to be so stressed out, to be so overwhelmed, to be so lost that you don't even remember what happiness is anymore. My peace is gone. I can't even function anymore. Life is full of torment and worry, fear and sorrow and shame. But it doesn't have to be that way. That's not the life that God intended for you. He wants peace to rule your heart so that you can live at peace even within yourself and how you feel about life. It doesn't mean that problems and stress go away. It doesn't mean that everything starts working out. It just means that He resides in you and that there's a strength and that there's a patience and there's an ability to handle the things of this world. I was reminded of that even specifically with that other kind of peace I mentioned. When Jesus is so powerful that He can even speak to the wind and the rain and nature itself and calm the storm and calm the sea. If He can do that, He can calm your heart and bring peace to you as well. And then third, we talked about peace with others. And this is relational peace. That you can find peace with those around you. Do you bring peace into situations or chaos? We need peace with God so that we can be peace with ourselves, and then we can learn to live at peace with others around us. Because now peace is no longer dependent upon them. It's no longer dependent upon if somebody else does what they're supposed to do. My peace doesn't depend upon if somebody says the right things. It doesn't depend upon if others are not at conflict with me, but instead my peace is above me and flows down into my life. The psalmist David even prayed, God help me that I don't become like others. And he talks about the evil ways of the wicked way. He actually called them wicked ways of others who speak peace but have evil in their hearts. That's worldly peace. The kind of peace that's phony and fragile. People who speak peace. I'm sorry. I want to get along. I didn't mean it. I won't do it again. Or they bless you. Hi, Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. So glad to see you. And then behind your back, they're not speaking peace at all. But see, you can have peace from God, and that doesn't matter anymore. There's a strength that comes from somewhere else, and you can live at peace. God, give me the strength and your peace, so I'm not like the wicked who speak peace to me but have evil in their heart. I want to have peace in my heart and actually bring peace into the world. And that's the only way we can have that. So how do you get this kind of peace? We got to move quickly because our kids are coming in just a moment to share a little treat with us. How can we have peace? Well, first of all, and just 2 points on this. First of all, we have to have a moment of clarity. I love what it says in Jeremiah 6:14. They have healed the wounds of my people lightly, saying, peace, peace, when there is no peace. I found that just as I was reading through all these verses on peace. And that idea of healing our wounds lightly. It means it didn't matter. It didn't stick. It wasn't deep. It didn't go anywhere. It had no teeth in it. It had no real power behind it. It says, oh, just peace. I want peace. Let there be peace. And it meant nothing. We have to have a moment of clarity in our life where we need to see that we need more than just words. We need more than just pleasantries and bumper stickers that say things that mean nothing. We need something deeper. We have to have an awakening. We have to to have a moment when our eyes are made to see, like Jesus that put the mud upon the blind man's eyes, and when he washed it away, suddenly he could see. We need a moment of clarity where we can truly see. See as I am. See truth for what it is. See the reality of the world about me. See what Jesus is saying and who he is. We have to wake up out of the stupor that we sometimes live in and just drone our way through life. We have to come to a moment of clarity. Which leads us to the second thing, is when we start recognizing I need more peace in my life, then I need to begin to work on peace. Proverbs 12:20 says, deceit is in the heart of those who devise evil, but those who plan peace have joy. Peace is something we work on. Well, how do we do that? Well, Jesus gave us a plan. And I want to close with this. Jesus gave us a plan of what his peace looks like and how you can have his peace in your life. We find it in Matthew 11, verses 28 to 30. It says this, come to me all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. We've probably heard those verses before, but think about three specific things he says in here that are part of his plan to find peace in your life. Number one, you have to come to Jesus. He says, come to me. Where do you go when you're stressed out? When you're overwhelmed, when you're overworked, when you're worried or afraid? Where do you go? What do you do to unwind or decompress? How do you escape the pressures of life and try to find peace? At the movies, in front of the television, maybe go to the gym, maybe read a book, maybe hang out with the grandkids. That usually brings more chaos into my life, so as fun as it is. But where do you go? Where do you try to find peace? None of those things are wrong. None of those things are bad. They're all fine. But Jesus says, if you are heavy burdened, come to me. You can't watch enough television to find true peace. You can't read enough books or escape things long enough to find true peace. You can rest your body, you can unplug for a bit, you can recover from fatigue, but you can't find the deep kind of peace that your soul needs. That only comes from him. Second of all, he says, you need to connect with Jesus. Come to Jesus, but then you also have to connect with Jesus. We were talking about, this was shared this morning in our devotional time, that there are people who believe in Jesus, but they don't necessarily believe they need Jesus. How true is that? We have to connect with him. Jesus says, yoke up with me. A yoke is that wooden bar. We don't see this often anymore. Not a lot of us are probably farmers, but they would take two animals and they put this wooden beam across them, and they would tie two animals together, and it could pull a plow or pull a carriage. And the idea was that yoke helped them to work together. It strapped them together so that they could work together and tackle a big job by sharing the load and sharing the weight. Jesus wants to partner with you. He wants to work with you. He wants to work alongside you. This is more than a one and done. You can't just come to Jesus and say, okay, I've got enough. Now I'm ready to tackle life by my own. He says, no, I want to be your partner through every other step that you take. Do Christians still have problems? Absolutely. There's still pain. There's still struggle. There's still sufferings. There's still letdowns. So we have to work with him and invite him into every issue of our lives. Lastly, Jesus says, let me change you. Let Jesus change you. He said, learn from me. You need to learn the works, the words, and the way of Jesus Christ. What he said, what he taught, where he guided, what he did, how he lived his life. We study the Bible. We come to church. We learn together and share. We learn the words and the ways of Jesus, and we let him change us into who he wants us to be. Some people want peace, but they don't want to live like Jesus' way. But yet that's the plan. He offers you peace if you come to him. Let's close in a word of prayer.